I'm Alan Whitmore. People called me Al. I'm 65 years old. I spent 11 years in prison for burglary because I was more afraid of an empty apartment than I was of getting caught. Let me tell you what happened. You see, it was 2013. I was 54, divorced, no kids. My job was night janitor over in Bethel. I'd finish my shift as the sun was coming up. I'd drive home, and the apartment, it was so quiet you could hear the fridge hum. That silence felt heavy, like something was sitting on my chest. I'd just turn around and drive for hours, just to have the radio for company. That's how I was living, running from the quiet, when I ran into a ghost from my past. I was at a gas station, just killing time. Ray pulled up, an old acquaintance. He said he was doing some work and needed a lookout, someone with a cleanish record. He looked at me and said, "Come on, Al. It'll be like old times, better than staring at your walls." He said my name, he asked, and in that moment, my loneliness made his offer sound like friendship. I said yes. The first time wasn't even a burglary. I just sat in a cold car for 2 hours. My heart was hammering. I watched a dark house. When Ray came back, he slapped my shoulder. He laughed. He said, "See? Teamwork." That feeling of belonging to something, even this criminal thing, it was a powerful drug. It hooked me. It happened a few more times over the next weeks. Then came the night everything changed. It was another garage job, the fourth or fifth one. Ray was prying open a heavy toolbox. I was holding the flashlight. My hand was shaking. The beam danced over the workbench, and it was perfect, organized. Every wrench hung in order. A half-rebuilt carburetor sat under a clean rag. Someone knew how to do that. Someone sat here alone and made things, and I just stared. I thought, they talked to the problem in front of them, and I knew with absolute certainty that I was in the wrong room. I wasn't breaking in to take things. I was the thing being broken. The door crashed in 30 seconds later. Lights, shouting. It was over. They gave me 18 years. The cell door shut with a final sound I'll never forget. I traded the lonely silence of my apartment for the loud, terrible alone of a prison cell. No more letters from my sister, just the occasional one from an older cousin, a thread to a world I'd thrown away. Time passes even here. I got a job in the prison library. It was quiet, but a different quiet. One day I was shelving and found a manual on bookbinding. The pages showed how to fix a torn spine, how to repair what was broken. I checked it out. I started with scraps of paper. My hands, which had only ever held a mop or a flashlight for a crime, tried to follow the instructions. My first project was a destroyed dictionary. I spent weeks on it, cleaning the pages, re-sewing the signature, gluing the spine. It wasn't pretty, but it held. For the first time, I had made something whole instead of helping break something apart. The solitude became my workshop. That small skill changed my days. It made me think about that workbench in the garage and what I finally understood. That man wasn't lonely. He was in a conversation. I was so desperate to escape myself that I ran into Ray's bad idea and became someone I couldn't escape from. I filled the silence with the worst possible company. So here's what I know now. Too late for me, but maybe not for you. If the quiet scares you, don't run from it into someone else's crime. Run toward a manual, a how-to video, a broken toaster. Learn to lay one perfect bead of solder. Sand a piece of wood until it's smooth. The goal isn't a masterpiece. It's to make the hours mean something. To build a self you can bear to be alone with. I'm 65. I've served 11 years. I bind books in a prison library. It's too late for a lot of things. For my family, for my freedom, for a normal life. But it wasn't too late for me to learn how to sit in a quiet room. If you're listening and you're scared of the empty apartment, the quiet car, the lonely night, pick up a tool, not a weapon. Learn to fix something, anything. Start tonight. Your workshop is waiting. I know that sounds simple, too simple. When you're in that empty apartment, a how-to video feels like a joke. A broken toaster feels like an insult. You want a person, a voice, a hand on your shoulder. I get that. I really do. Let me tell you about the letter, the one I mentioned. It came last week from my cousin Eleanor. She's the only one who writes. She's 82 now. Her handwriting is shaky. She told me about her garden, about the tomatoes she's growing. She said she'd taken up bird watching just from her kitchen window. She listed the ones she'd seen: a robin, a blue jay, a finch. It was a normal letter, a quiet letter, but I read it 3 times, and then I just sat on my bunk and I cried. Not loud, just this ache, this realization. She was alone too. Her husband died years ago. Her kids live far away. But she wasn't lonely in that desperate way I was. She had her garden. She had her birds. She had things she was in conversation with. She had built a self that was good company, and I had built nothing. I had only broken. I sat there with her letter, and I thought about all the hours I'd killed driving around, all the silent meals. All that time was just empty space, a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. So I filled it with Ray. I filled it with sitting in that cold car. I filled it with the worst possible thing. Here's a specific moment I didn't tell you about. A week before that gas station, I was in a hardware store. I needed a new washer for my kitchen faucet. It was dripping. I stood in the aisle looking at all these tools, sockets and wrenches and pliers. I remember picking up a set of screwdrivers. They felt good in my hand, solid. I thought, I could learn how to fix that dripping faucet. But then I put them back. The thought of going home, spreading newspaper under the sink, trying to figure it out in that silence, it felt overwhelming. It felt pathetic. So I bought the washer and left. I never fixed the faucet. That was the crossroads, right there in the hardware store aisle. And I took the wrong path. I chose the harder loneliness. Because crime is hard. People think it's the easy way out. It's not. Sitting in that car, my heart trying to punch through my ribs, waiting for blue lights, that was agony. The guilt afterwards, looking at myself in my bathroom mirror, that was a deeper silence than any empty apartment. Every time Ray slapped my shoulder and said, "Good job," the high lasted about 5 minutes. Then the crash was worse. The loneliness came back, but now it had shame for company. The workbench in that garage, that was my second chance at the hardware store, a sign I refused to read the first time. That man had chosen a different path. He came home to that garage. He had a problem, a carburetor that didn't work, and he talked to it with his hands. He didn't need someone to slap his shoulder. The satisfaction was in the thing itself, in the fit, in the function. I didn't understand that language. I only understood the language of lack, of what I didn't have. No wife, no kids, no noise in my home. So I made noise the only way I knew how, with sirens, with shouting, with the clang of a cell door. The first year in here, the noise was constant, but it was the loudest loneliness I've ever known. You're never alone, but you are completely alone. You're a number, a problem. You are the broken thing, and no one is trying to fix you. You just sit on your bunk in your own private silence inside all that racket. That's the trade I made. I traded the quiet of a potential workshop for the noise of a permanent cage. I traded the chance to build something for the certainty of being broken. And listen, I'm not saying learning to fix a toaster would have saved my life. Maybe I still would have been a lonely guy, but I'd have been a lonely guy with a working toaster. I'd have been a lonely guy who knew how to do one thing, and that one thing leads to another. Maybe you fix the toaster, then the lamp. Then you look at a bookshelf and think, I could build that. You build a bookshelf. You put books on it. You read one. The person you are at the end of that year is different from the person who started. You have a skill. You have a shelf. You have a story about how you made it. I have a story too, but mine ends with a judge saying 18 years. Mine ends with me looking at a workbench I'll never sit at in a life I threw away. Mine ends with me looking at a workbench I'll never sit at in a life I threw away. And you know what the worst part is? The worst part isn't the cell. It's not the food, or the noise, or the loss of freedom. Those are just conditions. The worst part is the memory of that garage. It haunts me, not the arrest, the workbench, that clean rag, that carburetor, because I see it now for what it was, an invitation, a signpost to a different path, and I was already too far down the wrong road to turn back. The door crashed in, and they put me in cuffs. They walked me past that workbench. My last look at it was a blur of blue uniforms and flashlight beams. But I remember the feeling, this deep, sickening envy, for the man who owned it, for his quiet night, for his problem with a solution. They processed me, fingerprints, mugshot, the cold bench in a holding cell. I kept thinking about the tools, how they were hung up, cared for. My tools were a crowbar in Ray's hands and a flashlight in mine, tools of breaking, not making. At my sentencing, the judge said a lot, a pattern of behavior, a threat to the community, a need for consequence. My sister was in the back of the courtroom. I saw her, just for a second. She looked old, tired, ashamed. She didn't stay. She left before the judge even finished talking. That was the last time I saw her. That was 11 years ago. The letter from my cousin Eleanor. After I cried, I got angry. I was furious at myself. I tore the letter up, just shredded it into little pieces. Then I immediately regretted it. I got down on the floor of my cell and tried to piece it back together like one of my book projects. I couldn't. It was just confetti. I destroyed the one thread I had left. That's what I do. I break things. I sat on the floor with those pieces in my hand, and I thought about the dictionary, the one I'd fixed. I'd taken something broken and made it whole again. But I couldn't do that with my life. I couldn't do that with Eleanor's letter. Some things, once broken, stay broken. That was my lowest point, lower than the sentencing, lower than the cell door closing. It was last week on that floor, because it proved nothing had really changed. I was still the guy who broke things when he got scared or angry, just in a smaller room. A guard walked by, saw me on the floor. He didn't say anything. He just looked. That look said it all. Pathetic. And he was right. I lay on my bunk that night and I let it all in. Every stupid choice. The divorce, my fault. Too distant, too wrapped up in my own empty head. The job, just going through the motions, pushing a mop through empty halls. The gas station, Ray's voice. Better than staring at your walls. I said yes. I always said yes to the wrong thing because I was so afraid of the quiet where you have to face yourself, the quiet where there's no one to blame. I thought about my parents. They're gone now, died while I was in here. I got the notifications, official letters. I couldn't go to the funerals. They raised me in a quiet suburban neighborhood. They were good people, quiet people. They'd sit in the living room at night, my dad reading the paper, my mom doing a crossword. They were comfortable in the silence together. I never learned that. I thought quiet was something you had to fill. I thought it meant something was missing, so I filled it with a wife. Then when that fell apart, I tried to fill it with the noise of a crime. And when that failed, I was left with the loudest, most empty silence of all. Here's the truth, the brutal, simple truth I finally faced on that floor. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of myself. The person I was when no one was watching was someone I couldn't stand. Boring, scared, empty. So I found people who would make me feel dangerous. I found situations that would make me feel alive for 5 minutes, even if it was the adrenaline of possibly getting caught. I traded 11 years of my life, 11 years, for a handful of those 5-minute feelings. I traded sunsets and birthdays and quiet Saturday mornings for the memory of Ray's slap on my shoulder. I traded the chance to be someone, to build something, for the cheap thrill of being part of a we that was just two scared guys in the dark. And the cost, God, the cost. It's not just the time. It's the person I could have been, the 65-year-old man I should be. Maybe I'd have a little workshop in my garage. Maybe I'd have a dog. Maybe I'd write letters to my cousin about the birds I saw. Instead, I'm here. My hands are learning to fix books, but my life is a closed case, a finished sentence. That's the weight of it. That's the realization that breaks you. Not that you made a mistake, but that you were the mistake. Your loneliness wasn't the problem. Your solution was the problem. You filled your empty room with a grenade and pulled the pin yourself. I got up off the floor the next morning. I swept up the pieces of Eleanor's letter. I couldn't fix it, but I could write her back, so I did. On the prison library's typewriter, I told her I was sorry. I told her about the bookbinding. I told her about the dictionary. I didn't ask for anything. I just told her what I was doing with my quiet now. It was the most honest thing I'd written in my life. And that was the first crack of light. Not hope, not really, but understanding. I finally saw the equation, the one I got wrong every time. Loneliness plus bad company equals prison. Loneliness plus a skill equals a workshop. It's that simple. It's that hard. It's that simple. It's that hard. And here's what I learned, sitting here with my glue pot and my bone folder in this prison library. I was wrong about what loneliness was. I thought it was an empty room. It's not. Loneliness is an empty self. A self with nothing to talk to, nothing to work on, no conversation happening inside your own head. I was so quiet inside that any voice from the outside sounded good, even if it was Ray's voice telling me to do a terrible thing. That workbench in the garage taught me more in 30 seconds than I'd learned in 54 years. That man wasn't waiting for someone to come home. He was home. In his head, in his hands, he had a project, a problem that was a welcome guest. His solitude was filled with purpose. Mine was just filled with dread. I looked at his tools and I saw the difference between us. He used his to create order. I used mine to create chaos. He was solving a puzzle. I was becoming one. So my advice to you, if you're out there and the quiet is starting to feel like a threat, is this. Don't wait for a person. Become a person who can do something, anything. It doesn't have to be grand. Start with the dripping faucet I walked away from. Go back to that hardware store aisle in your mind and pick up the screwdriver. The goal isn't to become a master craftsman. The goal is to start a conversation with the physical world. When you're sanding a piece of wood, you're talking to the wood. When you're following a recipe, you're talking to the ingredients. When you're trying to fix that toaster, you're solving a mystery. You are not alone. You are in company with the task. That's the alternative I never saw. I thought the only way to not be lonely was to find another person. But another person can leave. They can divorce you. They can die. They can lead you to a gas station and offer you a terrible choice. A skill doesn't leave. It stays in your hands. It becomes a part of you. The satisfaction of fixing that book, of seeing the spine hold, that's mine. No one can take it. No judge can sentence me away from it. It's a quiet, private victory that fills the silence with something real. I'm 65. I've got 7 years left on my sentence, if I'm lucky. I'll be an old man when I get out. The world I knew is gone. My sister is gone. My parents are gone. My cousin Eleanor is in her 80s. I may never sit in a real workshop, but I have this one, this library table, and I have this skill. It's not too late for me to have learned this. It's just too late for me to have a life built on it. But it's not too late for you. If you're 25 and scared of your quiet apartment, or 45 and the house feels too big, or 60 and wondering what's next, hear me. Your fear is real, but Ray is not the answer. The answer is on YouTube. It's at the library. It's in the back of your closet where that broken lamp is. Pick one thing, just one. Promise yourself you'll spend an hour with it tonight. Not to be perfect, just to try. The very act of trying changes you. It builds a floor under your feet in that empty room. It turns the silence from an enemy into a space where something good can happen. This channel, from what I understand, is full of stories like mine. People who learn things the hard way, so maybe you don't have to. If this story, my story, meant something to you, if it made you think of your own empty rooms or your own bad choices, then do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notifications. That way you'll hear the next story. Maybe it'll be the one that gives you the final push you need. And leave a comment down below. Tell me, what's one thing you've always wanted to learn how to fix or make? A leaky faucet? A wobbly chair? A sourdough starter? Just saying it out loud or typing it there is the first step. It's a promise to yourself. I'll read them. I have time. If this hit home, hit the like button. It lets the people who run this channel know that these real, hard stories matter. And share it. Share it with that friend you have who's always complaining about being bored or lonely or lost. They might need to hear it more than they let on. Maybe you have a story of your own, a lesson you learned too late or just in time. There's a form in the description of this video. Tell it. Your voice might be the one that keeps someone else from saying yes at their own gas station. A book that helped me understand this once I was ready to listen was Shop Class as Soulcraft by Matthew B. Crawford. It's about the dignity of working with your hands, about how fixing things can fix you. There's a link for it below if you're interested. Don't be like me. Don't let your fear of the quiet write a story that ends with a cell door closing. Let it write a story that starts with a manual opening. Your workshop is waiting. It's wherever you are. All you have to do is show up, pick up a tool, and begin the conversation.